Trooper, open up. Psh, what's a guy got to do to get a drink around here? You thought it was gonna be me, didn't you? Okay, people, welcome back to another play day. Ooh, had to be done. I haven't had any time lately to sit down and do some customizing of my own, which is a shame because I have some Rebel 10 soft goods in there. I have some things to paint up. In fact, I'm gonna look at one of the kits that I'm working on, but there are a few in there, and that's the problem. The past few months have been consumed with working on my new space here. And the last piece of the puzzle is a workbench that I'm putting in right behind this camera. That's gonna be for painting, for chopping, for airbrushing, for heating and popping, all kinds of things. I figure it's just gonna be an absolute graveyard of parts and fodder and bodies and heads. But I have had some post office pickups, stuff that people have sent me, and I wanted to take a look at that because, man, sometimes you just gotta have a play day. It's not all of it, but I have to do this in increments. I have to do this in tiny steps or I get overwhelmed. Play days are meant to be relaxing, so that's how I shoot them. But hopefully, we'll get to another one soon enough. First up, the Ramen Toy 80s Commander's antagonist, Cyborg. Now, if you remember back to PowerCon, Ace gave me a sample of the first version, which is in a darker blue. And when I put that in the video for the drone, it didn't have this piece or the helmet. He has sent that along since then. This sparked so much nostalgia in me that I had to get the 80s version because it is a lighter blue. It's more like the original toy that I had forgotten I had as a kid. In the package, the two halves are apart, but you can see the extra detail in here. You know, the cooling fan, the reactor, the generator, the energy source, the fire extinguisher because his love burns hot. Then there's tiny keys, keyholes on this side, and magnets to put the two halves together. I have the blade for the elbow side of the arm, and then the spiked ball up on top. Helmet has super reflective red for the lens, and that's a nice contrast against the matte blue of the armor. There is just a foam pad on the back. I haven't tried this yet, but if it's like the other one, yeah, it's not the greatest hold on the head, but it'll stay down, especially once you fiddle with it a little bit and get it down into position. Putting them side by side, oh, two completely different feels, even though they're both the same sculpt. This one's got the cartoon vibes with the cleanness and the light blue. This one has a more modern feel with the darker blue and the dirtiness, the wash down in the sculpted details. I love this. But I really love this. Who would ever guess he's a minion? He just has that look. It has some detents to the shoulder. It looks like a ball's in there, but it doesn't actually tilt. It just rotates around. There is an elbow. This little head turns, and I call it a head because on the original figure, whenever they split apart, this became its own little drone thing. And then he was just left to hop around the battlefield, I guess. Looks way up and looks down until it hits the armor. So much tilt. Shoulder, oh, there's that sound. Double elbow, nice movement. There's drop down to the leg. Forward, kick back, kick out. Double knee, but because of the sculpt, it crashes into itself right there. And then a dumbbell going down to a hinge and a swivel, so you get some movement and some shift forward and back and tilt. And then on the robot leg, it's the same thing at the ankle, but it has more room because it's sculpted more open. And then each of the toe things have their own little ball joints. Oh, you get way more movement on the robot leg, but less at the hip. There is some tilt in and then forward and back. Like I said in the original video, I had forgotten I had this as a kid. I knew about Centurions and people's wish lists and everything, but when this was handed to me at PowerCon, the other version, but this too, I looked at it and thought, oh, something swelled up from my gut to my heart to my brain, and it was just like, I gotta have that. Along those exact same lines, when NECA announced their Dungeons and Dragons Zarak, it was another reminder of action figure days gone by. I know Veebs had been talking about being invested in the line because of the vintage figures and everything, but I was like, okay, those are cool. Knights, that guy, that's a lot of snakes on that guy. But when I saw this, it was like, click, snap, brain locked into position, and I remembered that I had this vintage figure too. So leave it to Dave to punch me right in the gut by sending me a vintage figure of Zarak. When I had this as a child, I did not know what line it was from. I didn't know the name, I didn't know anything. All I knew was that it was a little orc figure. And what ended up happening back then was he would hang around Grayskull and the Masters of the Universe as a little, hee, I'm gonna do mischief. Getting this now as an adult, knowing the toy line and the name and the bio and everything, it hits a little different. So thank you, Dave, for making this old man feel older. Because I go back to those days of laying on the carpet, Grayskull wide open, Transformers tracks driving around and flying around and opening that hatch on top, and then He-Man and Skeletor, and this, and the motorcycle guys, the green motorcycle with the orange riders, just everything. That's where it all started. That's where I learned how to play. And that's where it stuck. And thankfully, I remember how to play even after all this time. You take any amount of time out of a day, especially when you've had a rough day, a tough time of it, and grabbing something that just brings you a little pure joy. You can't beat that. Oddly enough, we're going to jump from one old figure to another old figure. And this happened within the span of a week. I got this in the P.O. box, and then Dave sent the package a few days later. And I'm like, man, when did I start collecting vintage figures? But, when they have some connection, you can't beat that. This is actually a G.I. Joe figure named Robo Joe. I did not know the existence of Robo Joe until we were on a Google spree during a Fooshcast. The chat was throwing out names hot and heavy, and I was typing, and that vehicle's cool, that vehicle's cool, that vehicle's cool, that character's cool. Robo Joe? I didn't even know there was a thing. He's my new favorite character now. This is now on the top of my wish list when it comes to G.I. Joe Classified, or my customs list that I will get back to someday. This comes from Aquamanly. I see him on Twitter, and I see him in chat, and I see him on YouTube comments. And he said that he tried to catch me at San Diego Comic-Con to give this to me in person, but I was always talking to somebody and he didn't want to interrupt. What I like, besides the name Robo Joe, is that this just looks crazy, even within the realm of G.I. Joe. This big suit of armor, this half-robot face, the paint splatter. At first, I thought it was like Starfield or something, but no. It's just paint flecks just thrown at the black parts. All under a Batman helmet? I mean, look at it. There's this blaster thing that probably plugs into a hole. Oh, well, I mean, right there. Does it go in his hand? Nope. It's the other peg fits into the hand, not that one. He also included the weapons on a sprue. You have 2 rockets that work with this, 2 guns, and a shotgun, and then a machete sword. Wait a second, what is going on here? Primary military specialty, criminal termination. G.I. Joe doesn't mess around. But yeah, definitely thank you, Aquamanly. I'm gonna put this on the shelf and then use this as a template when I do get around to customizing it. I'm sure I can come up with a half-robot face, and this looks RoboCop-like, right? If I take the 7-inch NECA figure and use the torso and maybe something down here. Well, I mean, the whole body is kind of scaled up from a regular human body. Oh, get the ideas flowing, because holding it in my hand is way different than looking at pictures. I can get an idea of thicknesses and bulkiness and everything, and how the hell they did that paint job. The Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Series Pulse exclusive Chuckles. I haven't had a chance to review this yet, but I think I'm going to, because I pulled it out of the package to do what I'm about to do, and the more I sit here and look at it, the more it's like, ooh. But the reason I have it out for Play Day is that Veebs sent me a picture of a head swap he did with the Marvel Legends Hank Pym, and I like it a lot. Putting these two figures side by side, you would think this is not going to work. The heads are completely different sizes. The Marvel Legends body is a bit bigger than the G.I. Joe Classified series. But looking at Pym's head, he has that Chuckles vintage feel with this hair flip, this curl right here. The new one does have that, but not as prominent. So all we're going to have to do here is pop the head off, pop this head off, put a little blue tack on the top of this because this ball is smaller than the socket in Pym's head. And at first, yeah, the head does look a little big, the skin tone looks a little bit different, but the more it sits on the figure and the more your brain acclimates to the merginess of the two toy lines, it's not that bad. It almost brings it into more human proportions, which G.I. Joe Classified series is pretty close, but they do play up the head sizing. Where you make a head smaller, it makes the body feel bigger or bulkier or muscly. So while we're shooting for a vintage vibe with this head, it almost makes it TV show-like. Like there's an actor playing Chuckles. And I thought putting him next to another G.I. Joe figure would really accentuate the size of the head, make me think it is big, but this isn't doing anything to convince me otherwise. Does Chuckles want a cracker? Chuckles wants a cracker! And that's not going to work because little socket, big ball. But would that help bring Hank's scale? No. It's going to be big ol' arms, big ol' torso, big ol' legs, tiny head. The problem with this swap is that Chuckles, like I said, is a Pulse exclusive in a deluxe packaging. So it's about, was it $41.99? And then Hank comes in a Marvel Legends Amazon exclusive 5-pack that runs $80 to $124 depending on when you can catch it. So this is not a cheap swap. You're only going to do this if you really, really, really love Chuckles and don't care for Hank Pym in his jumpsuit gear. And I'm a pretty big fan of West Coast Avengers, so I'd probably leave it like this. But the idea is out there if you're looking for a different head for Chuckles. I showed this off a couple of play days ago. This is an Alan Davis Nightcrawler sculpted by Fan Plastic 4 that I 3D printed and painted up. Well, I sent off an extra one to Corey at Casting Cave for him to mold up and paint, and this is what he sent back. Now, I don't hate my paint job, but I gotta admit, I do like Corey's better. Mine is kind of Kurt hiding in shadow. Corey's is bright light, out in the open, Excalibur doing a press conference or something. But this is a good showcase of how two different people can do two different paint jobs on the same sculpt and make it look like it's not the same sculpt. I mean, you look at the basics here and yeah, you can see the facial features and everything, but yeah, this is just some sweet, sweet frosting on my Excalibur Nightcrawler. And then I can put this on a different Nightcrawler for a different era with a different version of X-Men or something. What I'm trying to say is you can never have enough Nightcrawlers. I just need more Nightcrawler bodies. However easy those are to get at this point. I haven't even looked. But while we're talking about Casting Cave, I got a Bishop head from him a while back, and that just sweetened things up. I'm not saying I had a problem with the Hasbro sculpt at all. It is a great Bishop head, but this is a little bit more Jim Lee-ish. It being third party, they could go more artist specific. But then I recently picked up the Hasbro X-Men 97 Bishop, and oh man, the body is such an upgrade. It's not so pec shelfy. The torso has a good shape to it, and then the legs aren't as disjointed. It fits the silhouette better. Again, I don't have a huge problem with this. It's Marvel Legends, but if they're gonna improve something, I'm gonna like it because it is improved. And this is improved. It is Bishop, just in a better shape. It is based on an animated series, so some of the details are smoothed out, like the shoulder strap things. It doesn't have the little pockets like the original figure. It doesn't have the same wrinkles around the sleeves. Belt doesn't have near the sculpt to it. And the colors are a bit brighter, the blues, the yellows, the reds. But even that's a bit more comic booky. These threw me off at first. These sculpted on outer leg lumps. Don't know what those are. It's like he's hiding something under the spandex. Googling, those are accurate to Jim Lee's X-Men Bishop from back in the 90s. So again, improvement for this specific character. And while Bishop's changed his hairstyles over the years, I am not attached to what is apparently the new animated series look for him. I started thinking, oh, if I'm going to use this as my Jim Lee Bishop, he probably needs a custom head, right? I can take this off the first bishop, take this, put this here, then I can put the original head back on this bishop, and that gives me this. And holy moly, I am super happy with this. Again, it comes down to your personal preference. If you're not gonna want these bright yellows on your comic book X-Men shelf, then go with this. If you like your bishop a bit more streamlined, go with this. I guess I could have tried this out. Bring this over to here. See what this looks like. Well, okay, if you just want to merge both bishops together, the original head works here too. Since I have the casting cave head, I might as well put this back on the body. And then this is the one I'm gonna use on my main display. Because you can never have too many bishops. Here are some movie Spider-Man upgrades from Crafty Gecko. Tobey Maguire, I think these two are the same head. And then there's a more calm head. Then you have Andrew Garfield angry along with a smiling head. There are a couple of those heads that he painted up. Then he included a couple of Spider-Man feet with toe joints. And then there's pointing fingers for each version of Spider-Man. And yeah, I had to go tub diving to find the Far From Home Spider-Man. Now I can do this. Or well, pop the head off and can do this. I have to go back in and find the Tom Holland head. I think I was using the one from the 2-pack with Ned. Didn't that come with 2 unmasked Tom Holland Peter Parker heads? The silver matches pretty well on the Friendly Neighborhood. Same goes for Amazing. And then the black and red for MCU. Now everyone knows that I am a huge fan of the Zur-En-Arh Batman costume. I don't know why. The purple, the yellow, the red, it just works for me. Maybe because it's not your standard Batman colors. It's just a crazy costume running at you from a dark alleyway. But I have the DC Universe Classics. And I have the McFarlane DC Multiverse. Knowing all that, my best good friend Prodigy took the best of both worlds and made me a 1/12 scale, super articulated Batman of Zur-En-Arh. I can't even tell you most of the parts here. There's arms, and there's torso, and there's legs. But look how delicious the colors are. The lemons, the cherries, the grapes. I do know that the belt, the head, and the upper chest is from the McFarlane figure. Some hollowing and some strategic cuts because there's these seamless, where the costume's stitched together right there. You place that over a different torso and you can't even tell the difference. But Prodigy and my other buddy, Dis Thunder, have become masters at taking the 7-inch DC Multiverse scale parts and pieces and putting it on 1/12 scale bodies. And because of the size of the heads and various other parts, it just works. Plus, check out the wired cape. I could put this into all kinds of poses. Another Zur-En-Arh Batman for the shrine. Again, don't ask me why this is my favorite Batman costume. It just is. Here's a big hunk of resin that I've been sitting on for a little bit. Steve Mays, who goes by Mayster Chief on Instagram, reached out to me around San Diego Comic-Con time. I run around crazy at the show, so I missed his messages for a little bit, but when I finally caught up to him, he was like, hey, I would like to send you one of my custom Cobra snakes. And when I saw the picture of it, I thought, God dang it. That is another G.I. Joe item that I did have as a kid. You know the story. I didn't have a lot of G.I. Joe when I was a kid, but apparently I had more than I thought I did. Because there has been a lot of things lately that have just hit me that way. Like, oh, I did have this. I don't know why I had this, because I didn't have too many figures that would go in it. And if you think back to the vintage snake, it didn't really hold together well when there was a figure inside of it. But it did have that rubber skeleton thing that you could shove into it and hold it together. This works even better than that because this has the magic of magnets. There's 2 right there and then 2 corresponding on the body. Same with the arms, and it is a tough pull. In fact, you can put that on there and rotate around like it was jointed in. And then the 2 halves split apart. And when I first did this, I thought, well, okay, there is a lot of beautiful detail on the outside. The inside can't be as... Oh my God, look at that! The big old arm magnets slot into the front half, and then you have magnets to hold the 2 sides of the shell together. And this is big enough to fit a figure, but it is a tight squeeze, so I haven't really wanted to get rowdy with it. This thing's so sturdy without a figure in it that I don't mind. I mean, look at that. And it's not going to add articulation by putting a figure in it. The only thing I care about is it standing, it looking badass, and it pointing to shoot at the enemy. Look at that Cobra logo. The details on the back, running spacely sprockets and such. And imposing. If you're on the battle lines and this thing comes trudging towards you, even if it's slow as hell, it has that zombie factor. It's just... oh my god, what is going on? Now, I just checked his Instagram, and besides these, he also showed the hang glider and the pogo. So, go check them out. See what's available. And if you have a chance, grab something, because this is awesome. Finally, like I said, I haven't had a chance to do a lot of painting or actual customizing, so a little work in progress for one of my favorite figures of the year. Yes, I do love the Hasbro Star Wars Black Series Book of Boba Fett Krrsantan. Do something about it. So I jumped all over this upgrade kit from 2797 Studios. Here's the mug he's drinking out of in the bar. Then at the end of the series, he has this fruit thing. I have two electro effects that need to be painted up kind of whitish blue that go over the knuckles to charge those up. But these are the biggest reason I wanted this kit. No, he did not use swords in the TV show. These are from the comics. This gives him those gladiator vibes, those early Krrsantan feels. So at the end of the day, any day you get to play, any day you get to have a play day, is a good day. I keep trying to fit more plays and days into my closing statement every time. Because you can never have enough plays and you can never have enough days. So yeah, there you go. Customizers, artists doing their thing. I love elbow grease on figures. Yeah, there's something about opening up a toy and just putting it on the shelf, or playing with it, or posing it, or taking pictures. But man, adding a little love to it, that sounds wrong, but you know what I mean. Adding some enhancements. That's what I love. I love having something unique for the display. If you're interested in any of these people's work, all the links are in the description. And even if you're not interested, like I always say, just go show them some love. Go say, hey, you do good work. Add a little positivity to someone's day, because they're trying to put positivity out into the world. So back and forth, back and forth. Like I said, I'm working on my workbench. Hopefully I'll get some kits that I've gotten from other people, painted up, finish off Krrsantan, finish off some of the works in progress that I showed in old play days. I'm still working on Nanny and, Mayster from Inferno to go with my Sim and Goblin Queen. But that just means more play days. Ain't nothing wrong with that.